Welcome to our webinar today. We're dealing with the Leadership Development Series, the Leadership Training Series, and today we're going to talk about 3 provisions that you as the developer, as the key leader, are going to provide for your leadership candidates. The people that you want to develop, there are some things that you and your leadership team who are developing other leaders in the church need to provide for them. But first, before we discuss those 3 things, I believe I want to help you build a solid foundation to build those provisions on so that they work correctly. And they might be considered preliminary items that you want to get settled and established before you start providing these 3 things. So the first one is you need to do some envisioning. In this, you want to help your leadership candidates see the possibilities. Help them see what could be. As they are able to grasp God's vision for your ministry and you've been presenting your case to them, help them see what should be. And then lastly, it needs to grow and mature into what must be. It's one thing for you to say, well, this could be. It's another thing for you to say, it should be. But when they get the conviction that it must be, then they're a good candidate to be a leader in your ministry. Along with that, you want to help them see the potential by doing 3 things. Number 1, you want to present a convincing argument that shows them or convinces them, persuades them that God's vision must happen. Secondly, paint a compelling picture for them, a portrait, so they can see it with their mind's eye. And thirdly, produce a clear, concise statement that summarizes God's vision and the mission of your church so that they can grasp it. Help them see the end product. What are you trying to produce? What happens if they go all the way through your leadership training process and they become a developed leader and plugged into a ministry or overseeing several ministries in your church, and they are involved in developing other leaders? What's the end product? What are they going to get out of it? What is the church going to get out of it? What's the community going to get out of it? What is their family going to get out of it? What's going to be the end product? What's it going to look like, act like, smell like, taste like, move like, feel like? What's the end product? And then thoroughly bathe your effort in prayer. The foundation to all of this is that we go before the Lord and stay connected to Him, and we petition His help and direction, and we're wanting to partner with Him. We're not wanting to run ahead of Him or behind Him. We're wanting to be with Him and for Him to work in us and through us to develop leaders. But people who are going to go into your process or program to become qualified and develop to lead in your ministry, they need to have a clear understanding of God's vision for your ministry, and they must be convinced and persuaded. So they must see it, and they must be convinced. And they must be able to go and compel others, persuade others, convince others that this is what God wants done. It's foundational for you as you provide the 3 following things for them. Let me put an umbrella over everything. This would be the roof. The envisioning is the foundation, and let the enriching be the roof. And then you're going to build your walls, which are your provisions that you're going to give to and do for your leadership candidates. So in this, you better put a very clear understanding in everyone's mind what you're trying to do. And when you're going to enrich people's life, you need to decide how you will define your process. Are you going to do this by helping them develop in their leadability? You are looking to enrich their lives so you can establish, improve, develop, create, grow into them to be a leader. So you're working on their leadability. That's the umbrella over all of this as you are putting them through your leadership development process. So you're also going to decide on your training dynamic with what you're wanting to do with every person who is evaluated and invited in to be a part of your leadership development. You've got to decide if you're just going to focus primarily on their head or their heart or their hands. Are you going to focus just on two of these or all three of these? Now, as a general rule, I would tell you that the primary focus is their heart. But when you look at the individual people, you may have to apply the training that you're going to provide to focus more, say, on their head because they've got a great heart and they're developed in that way. They're willing and able, committed, and consecrated. They have followed Christ in Matthew 16:24, that they have taken up their cross, died to themselves, and they're following him. But when you look at that, what does the individual need? And you may apply your training technique or the dynamic by looking at how they are already developed and where their weak parts are, which you should have found out during your evaluation time. But you're going to learn more as you continue to evaluate them as they go through the process. You'll find weaknesses and strengths and opportunities for them to develop. And you'll find that they have certain challenges or things that threaten their ability to lead. And so this is a moving, progressive process. And so as you look at this, though, you do want to develop all of them, head, heart, and hands, so that they can be useful. Then along with that, you want them to be healthy. In their leadability, head, heart, and hands, you want them to be healthy, spiritually healthy, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, and if possible physically healthy, relational healthiness. And you want them to be fit for what God is calling them to do in your ministry. So you want them fit or able, qualified to lead. There's a difference between being healthy and fit. Healthiness is, in my thinking, the idea of being without disease. Everything is functioning. But fitness is the idea of being ready for a particular task. So you're trying to get them spiritually and mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, so that they can become fit, and that means you put them through a regiment and a routine to prepare them for a particular task. And so in looking at this, you want them to be fit. Are you catching all of this? Then along with this, you've got to determine your approach to training. Some folks just want a learner-driven approach so that they are self-taught. In other words, you're going through my training videos right now, and you could just take the information and go apply it to your ministry and customize it to your ministry and adapt and adjust it, and you'd be fine. And lots of people just need the information given to them so they can be self-taught. So you might consider putting your leadership development process, a lot of it on video, just like I've done for you. There are those who are content-driven. They need to be instructor-taught live on so that they can ask questions, and they not only need to hear it, but they also need to feel it, see it, taste it, touch it, and they're pulling from their environment to learn. Then you have mentor-driven, and this is hands-on coaching that is done one-on-one. And so it's not a classroom setting, it's sitting across the kitchen table talking or riding in the car and talking. And you're going to provide mentoring that an example. So it's example-driven or mentoring-driven, where you instruct and model, observe, and evaluate them, and it's done one-on-one. Some people you deal with are going to need that one-on-one time. Probably all of us need one-on-one time. We benefit when someone comes right along, takes us by the arm, by the hand, by the neck, by the shoulder, and pushes us along or helps us along and comforts us. And you know the impact of this is that it helps guys develop quicker and more thoroughly, better. And so the fourth approach is experience-driven. They may not want to be a book learner. They may not want anything more than you to let them perform and learn on-the-job training. So they do the work while they're being taught. It's performance training. They want to get out there and do it. I'll give you an example. We have 2 sons, full-grown, own families, but when we restored classic cars, muscle cars, together, and I was the leader and they were the trainees, and we went through this, and I brought in experts to help train and teach and work with us as we rebuilt a 66 Mustang and a 68 GTO. Don't stop listening to what I'm saying and start thinking about those cars. But let me tell you about my sons. One of them would go into a carburetor and tear it down by doing it, and he would just tear right into it. He can figure it out. He's mechanical. And he learned on the job by doing it. Second son goes and reads a manual and then goes and follows the instruction and tears it down part by part. 2 different kinds of learners and doers to get the job done. I've seen them both tear down motors, tear down radiators, and work on tear apart upholsteries, go through a car and deal with the systems and work on it. We had to do it because we didn't have the money to pay to have everything done. And so in doing that, how do you want to approach the training of the individuals who are in your process? So you then need to determine your role as the developer. Are you going to serve as a counselor, and you may have to do that, or a consultant, or a coach? But all in all, when you put all 3 of these together with that individual that you're developing and training, in prayerful hopes that they will be qualified and ready and willing to serve in your ministry to lead, so that you can enlarge the borders of your church ministry, so that you can reach more people with the gospel, grow more people up into Christ-likeness, engage people in more service, all to God's glory. When you do that, you sometimes will be a counselor, sometimes a consultant, other times a coach, but all in all, as you do this, you have to be an example of a leader yourself. And if you aren't a good example for them to follow in who you are and in your leadership and in your leadership functions and in the method that you choose or the model that you choose to lead, you're going to end up with a faulty product. And so we'll do a series on self-development as a leader, or how to be developed as a leader yourself. But now you're developing others, and you've got to provide a godly example in character, in conduct, and creed. Now let's go, as we talk about enriching, and ask the question, what can you do for them? Well, first, you can be an example that they can follow and should follow as a believer and as a leader. Secondly, you can build trust between you and them. Matter of fact, it is key that if you don't build trust and teach them how to build trust in their relationships with those who are equal to them in leadership, over them in leadership, or those that are under them in leadership, that you're going to have problems because you won't have a team that functions well together. You've got to be real. Put yourself in the place where they know you're not flawless. They know you're not perfect. Admit it. Admit it. And then be available. Give them your time and give them your full attention. Be consistent. Don't be one way one day and one way the next day. Don't do it one way one time and one way the next, and they don't know which is right and which they're to do or how they're to be. Be hopeful. You can do something for them by just filling them with hope. Be visionary. Help them catch God's vision for your ministry. Research has shown that 25% of the people in the world can create vision. They can put it together, see it, and out of thin air. Okay? 75% of the people, I think actually it's higher than that, but that's what the research I have says, have to catch the vision. They have to see it written down or physically. And so as a visionary, you want to help them grasp God's vision for your ministry. Then be a safe place for them to learn to lead. Then be grateful. Recognize and reward them. Recognize and reward them for what they're doing. Give them an award as they get to different levels of accomplishment in their development stage. Create a reward and recognition system that as they accomplish certain levels or certain tasks, you recognize and reward them in the group of people who are being developed. Come up with that which fits with your context, but be grateful. And then be supportive emotionally. Provide that for them mentally, physically, socially. Give them skill training. Give them the money they need to make this happen, equipment, and the personnel to lead them through it. Give them everything they need to help them develop so that your training is providing for them these things. You're going to enrich them. And so what will you give them? Well, John Maxwell has said this: use the BEST acronym. Use the BEST, B-E-S-T. Do your best for them or give them your best. Believe in them. Encourage them. Share with them and trust them. I think it's a pretty good thing for us to do. So if you're going to enrich them, now you've got a foundation of envisioneering with them where you're envisioning, helping them envision what God is up to with the possibilities and the potential. Secondly, you're putting a roof over it by them knowing that what comes to follow in the details of providing for their development, that you want to enrich them in every way. And so here is the first thing that you're going to provide for them as a developer in your ministry. You are going to educate them. And this is where you worry about their learnability. Their learnability. This is where you want to find out what potential is, what their bandwidth is, capacity and capability to learn. How quickly do they learn? What kind of learning do they do? And then you're focused on them learning about leadership and about the task that they are going to have to perform. So you're going to teach them, and teaching is the transfer of knowledge so that the student does the following things. The student catches the information, collects the information, has control of that information, is able to collate and coordinate and organize, and then all that information you're teaching them, and then orchestrate it so they can utilize the information. You are transferring the knowledge, not just so you build up their head, but you want them to be able to catch it and collect it, pull it in, have control of it so they're mastering it, so then they can collate it and coordinate it together. So as they organize it together, they can then orchestrate it and then utilize the information. They're learning it in order to put it into play, in order to use it to lead. And so as you're working with their learnability, understand that you are teaching them by instructing them so that you're ordering them or directing them. And I'll give you a simple formula to follow in this, and that is I call it 2 Timothy 3:16's formula. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for, and it gives 4 things so that the man of God can be thoroughly furnished, equipped. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to train them so that they are whole and complete, healthy and fit, and ready in every way to lead. So here it is. It is profitable, the Scripture says, about itself, for doctrine. That's what is right. For reproof. That's what is wrong. For correction. That's how to make it right. And for instruction in righteousness. That's how to keep it right. And so you might follow the idea that John Maxwell gives, another acronym, and that is the IDEA, I-D-E-A. Give them instruction, demonstrate it, give them exposure to it over a period of time, and then give them accountability so that you've tested them. So instruction, demonstration, exposure, and accountability, so you test them in it. And then you want to indoctrinate them. Indoctrination deals with doctrine, that is true, in theology, but you're going to indoctrinate them into your ministry design and into your process of development, so they know why you're developing them. But when you look at the ministries that they're going to lead and the place or their role or position that you're going to put them, you need to thoroughly indoctrinate them into all things blank, all things your ministry. The culture, the code, the core values, the mission, the vision, the strategic plan, how you implement it, how you manage and monitor it and make modifications, how you do everything. They need to be learning it inside and out. My father came home from the Second World War, married my mother, and one of the first jobs he had was digging ditches for an oil company. And beside him in the ditches digging was the son of the vice president of the company. And what the vice president was doing was educating his son in every single aspect of the oil business. When I was in college, I worked just before I went to college during my senior year and senior summer in the grocery business. And they repeatedly tried to talk me into going into management and not going off to college. And so they didn't mind if I stayed there in college, but they didn't want me to go to the school, go off to college, and leave their company, and I did. But in it, they offered me first to work in the bread area where I would learn how to make bread in the bakery. And then they were going to move me to the meat department, to the grocery department, to the front end of the store, and every aspect of it they wanted to teach me. Indoctrinate your people in every aspect of your ministry, so they are thoroughly familiar with the why, the what, the where, the how, the who, the when, and so forth. Then you're going to lecture them. Lecturing is not just from a podium to the student in a chair, but it is an informal talk. And you're going to have to do some lecturing, an informal talk with them, one-on-one and as a group. And then you're going to be informing them. This is where you give them knowledge and facts. And you're going to carry on discussions with them. And discussing something means that you openly consider the pros and cons. The people that you're developing may not agree with you about everything, but you do need to discuss it, because growth and thought processes come about when you discuss it. And don't think that they're going to know everything. If you ask them what their theology of church is, or theology of culture, or theology of change, or theology of leadership, you may find that they're going, oh, I never thought about that aspect of that. So discuss things with them and the pros and cons, and then have a dialogue with them, so that a dialogue is an interchange, an exchange of ideas in open discussion. And so as you go through these things, you want to help them become thoroughly educated about everything they'll need to lead. And I would suggest that you use some storytelling techniques. And so that you take them through a journey. A story has often a villain in an evil situation, a good guy who is going to defeat the villain and solve the problem, the evil situation, and so that you have a solid solution. Well, there's a storyline that's been used for, Scripture uses it and tells us stories to teach us everything. So consider using storytelling. And some other tools you can use, I'll have them on the resource here for you. Just below the video, you'll see on your screen there, your computer screen, a list of things. And Protege is a book that one guy wrote it in order to show you how to prepare and train leaders for your church. And then Strength-Based Leadership is another tool that you can use to help people become aware through self-evaluation and taking tests, to educate them on where their strengths are. But also it deals with leadership by your strengths. The longer a leader has to lead swimming in his weaknesses, he is going to burn out and become exhausted, and he is going to become discouraged. And so use tools that we're giving to you and others that you can find on this video and then in our Ministry Design Concepts website, where you can go there and see any number of books on developing others. It's under the book reviews. In edifying, and this is the second provision that you will make to fill out our house of developing others into leaders, that you're going to nurture them, and this is where you deal with their heart. Education is with the head. Edifying is with the heart. It is nurturing the soul, their spirit. And so in this, you're dealing with their be-ability. You're edifying them through improving them. You want to make them better. You want to make them more valuable. You want to cultivate them through change. And improvement involves making something better and more valuable, but it requires cultivating the person through change. Change is not necessarily well received by people and by those that you're looking to have them change so they can become a godly leader who is going to be successfully utilized in and through your ministry to fulfill the Great Commission. And so as you go through this, there are 5 basic kinds of change adopters in every church. The first one is the instant adopter, who sees it and you have them before you ever open your mouth. They're ready to follow your leadership. Then you have the early adopters, who you have to tell them what you're doing and give them the vision for the change and the benefits of the change, and they're easily adopted. They're early and easy. Then there are the average, or the norm, which is probably 35 to 55% of your congregation are in the average. They're not quite early and easy to adapt. They just need more convincing. Then you've got the late adapters who are just dragging their feet, and you're going to need the help of the average adapters and the early adapters and the instant adapters to convince the late adapters. And the fifth group are the never adapters. They're just never going to come around. So you're trying to improve them. And then secondly, to edify them, you're investing in them. Investment means to furnish with power and authority, and you want to clothe them with Christ-likeness and character so that they walk in the Spirit, so that they are controlled by the Spirit and Scripture. So you're investing in them so that you can furnish them. All right? So you want to clothe them, dress them. Then you're going to be improving them in this whole process so that you're also nurturing them, and that means to feed and to care for. And to care for, what does the person need to be ready to lead? What does the person need to be ready to lead? And then you want to focus on their needs. And so this is individual. So you can't just do this in a classroom setting. You've got to give individual tutoring to them so that they are fed what they need. And so as you look at athletes, and they each are on different kind of diet to help them prepare for the task that is coming for them. So if I'm training swimmers, their nutritional needs will be different than perhaps somebody who is wrestling. And so as you look at this, you're nurturing them. Then you're building them as you are nurturing them through directing and developing them. So you are going to discover their genuine desires and what they want along with what they need, so you can help them commit to make a definite decision to follow Christ and to lead others to do the same. You want to supply the things needed to help them perform at their full potential. So while you're nurturing them with their needs, look at what they want, which you should have already established through the evaluation time. But like I said, this is an ongoing process, and you're uncovering and turning things over, like turning a stone over to see what's under it. As you're doing that, you are building them, and you think of a construction term. Lots of material and labor are used to put together a building or a car or anything else that you're going to build. So you're going to grow or intensify them through their personal growth as a person, So in their character, conduct, and creed, they are growing. As a leader, you are building them. As a person, you are building them. As a believer, you are building them. So you're growing and establishing them. You're edifying them in every aspect of who they are, so that you then are strengthening them. You are building their endurance, that means their toughness and their durability. You are making them and wanting to cooperate with God as God is making them entire. I'm thinking of James chapter 1, where God says that he is sending testing times, trials, tribulation, trouble, in order to make us mature and endure. So he wants to make us entire, and where we lack nothing, we're complete and whole, missing nothing. And he wants to make us endure, where we can persevere through it. He is strengthening us. So we want to help make them, through the strengthening process, ready for duty, ready for action, ready for leadership in the area where they're going to lead, and ready for ministry. And then you want to do some tooling. You want to build them up by preparing them with the right stuff to be successful. You want to build up their character, their commitment, and their consecration. You're preparing them to be an instrument in God's hands. And you can use certain tools to do this. One book that I would recommend is a book called A Work of Heart, Understanding How God Shapes Spiritual Leaders. I believe Reggie McNeil wrote that one. And the video I did in this leadership development series on priorities in developing leaders. Well, here's the third one, and that is equipping. And this is where you're training them for a particular task or duty. And this is where, you've got the head with education, you've got the heart with edifying, and now you have their hands that you're equipping. And this is their due ability. And you want to equip them generally for everything in your ministry so they understand it. So you're preparing their heads, their hearts, and their hands to understand the whole ministry and its design as you as the architect and your team of architects have built your ministry and are now carrying it out. You want them to see it, both the general and their particular area that they are going to minister in. So you want to get down to the details so that if you're putting them into your children's ministry in a particular part of that ministry to oversee certain people, and they're going to have personnel who are helping them that they're leading. You want to get down to the general aspect, but you don't want to foster a silo mentality where they're only going to look after their little part in the ministry. In doing this, you're going to train them. This means you're going to develop their doability to do what they know and have learned and what you've taught them. And so you're going to give them time and a trial and an internship and an opportunity, and you're going to test them and correct them, and you're going to build them up during the training time so that they are growing. And as you build them up, you're going to train them. Training is the thought of a person or a group that follow behind a leader that guides them. And so think of a train headed down the tracks. Well, behind it, behind the locomotive, are cars full of all kinds of goods. And so training is the idea of a leader that is up forward and he is pulling behind him and serving as a guide on a set of tracks, and you're going to grow them through your guidance where they are morally upright, ethically sound, mentally matured. They are made to be proficient at a particular task or occupation and then fit for the task or occupation. And you are tooling them with the right things to make them successful, to use the opportunity for them to grow and to develop. So as you go through and do this, you are helping them. Now let me just stop here for a moment and share some things with you. And I didn't put these on the screen, so you may want to jot them down as I mention them. But if you're going to help them be properly prepared and equipped for a particular ministry, let's say the children's ministry again, don't you have to show them how you're that ministry is designed? They need information just organizationally to understand everything that you're doing. So let's just look at it. And I put these into P's to better help us grab them. Now, they need to fully understand, let's say again, the children's ministry, the philosophy of ministry in the children's ministry. What are your set of beliefs and values that guide your actions? Why do you do what you do? That's your philosophy. Secondly, your purpose. What are your stated goals, objectives, intents, and aims? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the purpose for the children's ministry? The overall purpose. And then the programs. This is your organized plans. What are the vehicles used to transport you to your stated goals? Do you constantly adjust or even delete if they are not accomplishing the stated purposes of those goals? So you want to show them how the program works together. And then the policies you use, these give structure to your programs. And these are the guidelines for carrying out your programs. These are the rules that you've set to keep them in the parameters of that ministry so they don't get out of bounds and get in trouble. And then you're going to give them procedures. And this describes the what and how you do your programs. These are the procedures or the processes you're using. Then they've got to know what your priorities are. These are the things, what's first, what's second, what's third, so that they can see what is happening here. And you want them to be able to know each aspect of this. So what is most important? What comes first? And then your plans. So you're going to develop a game plan that comes out of the things I've listed before here: your philosophy, your purpose, your programs, your policies, your personnel, and your procedures. All are used to develop your plans. And then you want to share with them the parts. This is where you tear it apart and put it into components for them to see. Share with them who the personnel is. Who are the other folks who are helping them in the children's ministry? The preparations. What needs to be done every weekend before they minister, or before you bring a new volunteer in to make the ministry more effective. And then the projects that you may do in that children's ministry, that every year maybe you have an event with an award time or recognition time or a special Easter program for the children. You're going to have projects that you work on. Help them understand what they are. Now, let's deal with another P, and that's performance. This is what you require of them, or what duties they're going to have to do. So you show them the quality of your service and programs and projects. And then productivity. This is, what are you going to be evaluating? What do you require of them? How productive do they need to be? And then you've certainly got to show them the people that they're ministering to. That's not the personnel who are helping you carry out the children's ministry. It's the children. And then you want to help them understand the place that they are ministering, so they know everything about the facilities and the equipment and the supplies and the curriculum and the furnishings, so that they know everything about everything in the place that they are doing. And the last P is the price. What money do they have to work with? If you're going to equip them for a particular ministry, they need to know everything about the way that you're organized, so that they need to know what the schedules are, when things happen, where things happen, who does what, when, where, how, and so forth, and why, so that they can move ahead. And you are helping them understand the tasking that you are giving to every single one of them. You're preparing them for a task, and you have to help them understand everything about the ministry. You might have a manual in writing or a video that helps them see it, or you have a class that is for helping them understand, and an outline that they can fill in. Decide how you want to orient them and get the information in their head, but you better show them how everything works. So let's just go to a real-life situation. As an example, you're working them in the children's ministry. You know that they're going to be put into leadership there. So you do, like the illustration I gave earlier with the vice president of the oil company, had his son digging ditches. So maybe you take them into that children's ministry and you let them serve for 8 weeks, 5 weeks, a Sunday or several weekends in every position, so they've learned it from the ground up before they take leadership. It's a part of their being tooled and trained for a particular task. You're letting them do the work of the ministry hands-on, and so they can experience the trouble and the challenges of all of that. There's a show that comes on. I haven't watched it, but it's about the boss, and the employees don't know that he's the boss, so it's an undercover boss. Well, he learns a lot about the people and the procedures and the challenges and the way that his business is put together and its design from being the undercover boss. It can be a very humbling experience. Give your leaders the opportunity to serve as a grunt, so to speak, and let them come up through the ranks and learn every part and place and person and people and performance and duties and everything. That's my suggestion to you, so that you clearly have a target that you're wanting them to learn certain things. You know what you want. When Paul wrote Ephesians 4, and it gets to verses 11 and 12, where we're to be equipping people for the work of the ministry, for the service of the ministry, and then talks about and uses the body as an example till we're all grown up into the fullness of the measure of Christ or stature of Christ. There's a clear target there that he was shooting for, and to give them a vision of what he was wanting to happen. Let your people know what the target is, what you're trying to get them ready to develop for. Show them and share with them the administrative details so that they can continue to grow. And as you teach them these administrative details, all the P's that I just went through, so that they can mature, you want them to know everything that you're requiring of them, and so that they can prosper. And then you're going to support them. You're going to provide a time where you continue to care for them. So it's not one and done here. Where now, okay, they've been through our process, our school, our training time, whatever you're going to call it. And now you shove them out on their own and don't ever pay any more attention to it and just hope that they lead correctly. No, you're going to have to continue to equip and edify and educate so you can enrich them. You're going to have to repeat the vision. You're going to have to do this and continue to care for the house that you've built. And so as you look this, let's just go back through it. You are going to give them a foundation of the vision of your work. So you're going to envision for them so they can grasp what God is wanting to do in his preferred future for your ministry, for them, and for the ministry that they are going to take charge of. You are going to enrich them so that they grow. Then you're going to use 3 key provisions in your ministering to them for all time while they're there leading. You are going to educate them so that they understand in their heads, they learn in their learnability. So that you then are going to edify them in their hearts so that they are developed in their be ability. Then you're going to equip them so that in their hands they have doability. So this is just an initial start for you to help you design your own personalized, customized process for building leaders for every ministry in your church. Well, I'm Marshall Shannon, a ministry design coach with ministry design training and ministry design concepts. You can reach me at this email address or either one of these phone numbers, and I am praying that God will use this instruction, this training time, to help you develop your own leadership development process. May the Lord bless your efforts and bring glory to his name.